Whether on the go or at the table, get lost in a conversation about everything coffee with your host, Eric Ortiz.
Hi, and welcome to Everything Coffee, a podcast that brings in different people weekly from all walks of life to talk about everything coffee. And today I am joined by our friend, Barrett Ellis, owner of Portakeeper. Christmas is around the corner if you haven't heard already. And Barrett joins us to talk about the 2022 season in coffee with products from his own line, Portakeeper, but also what he thinks would be amazing gifts for yourself or for someone else if you're feeling generous, of course. It is Christmas after all. And as always, you can find Barrett online at portakeeper.com and on IG at Portakeeper. Everything we'll talk about today will be on the show notes, so feel free to jump on, click on those links, and just full transparency, there are going to be some affiliate links associated to Barrett. I make absolutely nothing from this. This is just to help and promote and make jolly for Christmas. So, full transparency. Barrett, how you doing?
Good. I'm really excited to be on your show again.
I'm happy to have you on again. I always try to keep up as much as I can with you, and I know you always send me some updates as to how everything's going in Portakeeper world.
Yeah, last we talked, I was about to start to use some of these new molds for my products. It's been over a year in the making, and they're finally starting to produce final products. We've spent a little bit of time. There's an issue with one of the 4 cavities that it should be repaired by now, but they have to get it back together and get it back into the queue to run the mold. So I'm hoping to see those parts this week, but we have the standard 58 millimeter Portakeeper running. We have our TamperKeeper and distribution tool keeper. So really excited since we talked last to start seeing these really high-end products coming out.
Absolutely. Every time I turn around, Barrett, it's like, okay, I click on Portakeeper and all of a sudden there's something new there. And I'm always just like, wow.
Yeah. And gotta keep just innovating. I mean, it's not just making money. It's what are people asking for? I had someone asking the other day, hey, I need a filter keeper for a different size filter. And I'm like, you get a Walmart and there's a whole shelf of those filters. So, I mean, people are asking for these items.
Definitely.
They like the concept, and then they just want to adapt it to something that maybe I don't use, but millions of people use. So why wouldn't you go about it?
Absolutely. I find myself looking at those and I thought to myself, you know what? You're right. That is useful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great things on there that are coming in. And today what we're going to be doing is talking about Christmas or whatever you celebrate gifts wise. It could be a birthday. It can be whatever faith you believe in and whatever celebrations you believe in. But Christmas is I would say is the mainstream of coming in. The 25th is the capitalist holiday, as you might say. And therefore we shall partake in our greed and talk about everything coffee with Barrett here and talking about products from espresso machines, grinders, accessories, everything in between. Grinders, we were talking a little bit about the show in terms of how many grinders exist now. It's overwhelming actually, just to kind of think about how many single dose grinders exist nowadays as compared to just even the beginning of the year when there was just a few still mentionable ones. And then espresso machines seem to be I would say the one thing that doesn't change, except there was a big release, and we'll talk about that from Marzocco. And then of course we'll talk about accessories like scales and even water filtration, which is an important aspect of coffee for any of us that are inside of this amazing world of ours. So besides that, we'll also talk a little bit about stocking stuffers because it is Portakeeper after all. And if you haven't seen Portakeeper, you need to go check that out, portakeeper.com with Barrett. A lot of great products, and we'll talk a little bit about those things because I'm very shameful like that, and I'm going to promote my friends here. So just so that we know, those are things we're going to do today. So if you're in for that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, which is going to be all about fun machines that we all wish we had because we don't have the money for it right now. But if you do, click on those links.
Yeah. A lot of cool stuff.
A lot of great stuff right nowadays.
Yeah, it's really just exploding.
It's really shocking, Barrett. Even after the pandemic, I wonder how much of this was just holdover. That just is the reason why it exploded, was because 2020 just really couldn't do it.
I found it pretty interesting. There's a Starbucks by my house, and there's usually people parked out in the street and clogging up the intersection. And I've noticed it's been pretty dead as things have picked up. I mean, what 2-3 years ago it looked like versus what it looks like today, it's just really died off. And
have people finally opened their eyes?
I'm thinking so. I know at work, I mean, most people don't make coffee at work, and I've noticed at least 2 people around me have their grinder on their desk. They have like little, like $80 espresso machine.
Do they really?
So, I mean, I think people have really kind of picked up the home coffee stuff.
I am known as the harbinger of death at work for several places I've worked at, and a lot of people look at me and kind of like, oh gosh, they're going to ruin coffee for me. And I do, because I'll often brew up coffee and have them taste it, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I need this. And I'm like, well, I should, you know what, I'm starting to think now, I should create an affiliate link.
Yeah.
And promote that internally. But no. Today let's start off with espresso machines,
okay,
Barrett, because you need a good espresso machine. And this is I'm going to say that most people that go into coffee, and I'm trying to think when I got into it, what was the one thing I go after? And I think most people right away are like, oh, I must have a good espresso machine. When in all reality, you probably should do reverse, which is first a grinder. And then an espresso.
I did the exact same thing. I got the nicer machine before I got the nicer grinder. The grinder was definitely not good enough for the rocket that I ended up buying. So,
yeah, it's a mistake that many will make, and we're gonna let you make that mistake, and we're gonna talk about espresso machines first.
Yeah.
So, what would be a good value espresso machine right now on the market that's available here?
I get asked this pretty regularly. I had someone ask me this last week, and I always ask their budget. You got to start off somewhere. So some people, they're just not ready to take that plunge into $1,000 plus machine.
Sure.
But if it's something that you're really wanting to get into, there's 2 that I don't see mentioned that much that I think are pretty nice hot machines right now. I know a lot of people, they're attracted to Breville, but I've really thought that the Quick Mill Silvano is a neat little machine. It's about $1,200. It's really just jam-packed with features, really small compared to some of these other larger heat exchange and dual boiler machines, but it's a really nice little intro, but yet really high-end machine to get going. So that would probably be my low-end pick, over $1,000. And then I don't think it looks as nice, but I go back and forth because I do really like it. It's the Ascaso. It's a newer brand, and I think they usually start at about $1,400. But I've known a few people that have had them, and they really love them. I mean, we're talking people. I know one in particular. They have a Bianca, and they wanted a second machine. They got this Ascaso. Like, man, it's really dang good. I really have no complaints about it whatsoever. So,
and it feels like Ascaso is it's been around, but not really a mainstay in terms of espresso recently. Yeah. But their products, it kind of is shocking because people I do talk to as well, they say, "Oh gosh, I love it," and yet when you look at it, it really doesn't look, you might say, as capable until you actually use it itself. And then you're realizing that this is actually a very powerful little bundle in there, and it's a good price.
Yeah, it's a really good price. I mean, for less than $1,500, you're getting a lot of espresso machine that should last you quite a while.
And keep in mind, we were talking about this before the show, and we were talking about where people usually start. And I started off with the Apartamento, and that was probably the bad decision at the time in terms of feature richness, and making the most of it. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's an incredible machine, but for the same price, you're probably going to get a better machine for that same price, which I think was, for mine, was like $1,800. But for $1,400, even $1,200, even with that quick mill, these are already feature rich items that match that of the Apartamento, maybe minus the heat exchange, but still an incredible machine.
I really liked the Apartamento. I didn't know if I was going to like it or not. I actually did a review on one, and I had a Lillet Mara X as well at the time. I'd say the Mara was a lot more feature packed. It had a lot more intelligence that you didn't know about built into it. But from a usability standpoint, side by side, I found myself just using that Apartamento every day. It looked great. It ran really great. Is. I liked the size of it. It was a bit different size. It wasn't one of those kind of tall, skinny machines like the Mara is. If I got one, and I know they've had some issues, but I'm hoping by now they've kind of ironed all those issues out, as it's an extremely popular machine for people to buy. I mean, if I needed a second or third machine, I already have a second machine. So if I needed a third machine, I'd probably get... I'd lean towards an Apartamento. I mean, it's a pretty cool machine.
It is. I miss it. Horribly. I talked to Barrett about this. It was built like a tank. It just had this visual look. And right now I have the Lillet Bianca V2, and it doesn't look as sturdy as that Rocket Apartamento. It just looked like it was just a rugged little thing, and it could probably take a long-term beating, assuming that you gave one to it. But really good made product. Rocket overall makes fantastic items.
Yeah, I've always liked Rocket, which would probably lead to my next one. It's kind of expensive nowadays, but I got an older Rocket Giotto. It would be like your middle of the road price wise. It's one of those where it's a huge jump up from some of the first ones that we mentioned, but for maybe incrementally more, you could get quite a bit more machine. Like you could go get a Lillet V3 Bianca for $300 more. That's a dual boiler, where the Giotto is a heat exchanger. But I really have always liked the Rocket Giotto. I wish if they could drop the price $400 or $500. I mean, I think it'd be a dangerous price point for this machine, but that's probably my middle of the road recommendation from a price standpoint would be the Giotto. There are a couple of quick mill machines as well. I couldn't even tell you the models, but I've been seeing them online, and they're probably in that about $2,000 price point as well. And everyone that I've talked to about them, they have several different models. They really have liked them, which in my infancy of espresso, quick mill really wasn't top of my list.
Sure.
And I've been surprised at how many people just don't even know the brand. I mean, they know the main ones. They know their Lillet, which, I mean, 3 years ago, I don't even know if anyone knew it existed. And it's a heavy hitter in the industry today. You have your Rocket. It's always been a big deal. You have like your big names that are really expensive. So it's always just kind of been out there, but not in front and center.
And you're in the manufacturing world, Barrett. Is this something that, I mean, obviously you got small little brands that picked up big steam and then powered it through this market, and now they're like you said, mainstays. But what is it about that? Is it just because of the manufacturing techniques that have gotten to a point where there's a lot more availability and
I think
ingenuity to this?
I think that's like hitting the nail on the head. You're able to offer a ton of features for not that much money. You're using stuff like PID controllers that can offer really accurate pressures and temperatures that historically you couldn't do. You're using a pressure stat, and nowadays you can add a PID for probably cheaper than all the extra work of putting a pressure stat in, and they're buggy and you have to mess with them here and there. So I just think these manufacturers, they're smart, they're getting smarter, they're copying what other people are doing and offering quite a bit of value.
Yeah, that's for sure, especially with all these machines nowadays. A lot of them look the same. Obviously, they have similar features, and it's just a matter of style sometimes when it comes down to it, and substance in terms of paying a little bit more because you want the name over maybe a few more features, but not necessarily the long-term knowledge of whether this machine's going to last. I mean, there's still some, I guess some of the crowd's still out on some of these products if they're going to last as long as, per se, a Rocket that has the proven track record over something else. Like we know Ranchillo and Sylvia has that track record of being one of those workhorses as compared to some of these newer machines, which we just don't know yet. And over time, we'll figure it out. But those are fantastic espresso machine choices. And of course, you can go all the way from a small little, non-brand machine that you can pick up anywhere to Bambino, Breville, all the way to the moon in terms of these machines and price and so forth. And at some point, there is a diminishing return, though.
Yeah, there is.
Where do you think that is in terms of the machines that we kind of talked about? Is that Giotto just like that's where we're at, right? In terms of coffee, it's not going to get much better unless you're kind of doing the flow profiling with like Elite or something of that nature. I mean, you're just, it's standard. It's the best. You're not going to get any better than that quality unless there's something just vastly technologically breakthrough that happens in the near future.
Yeah, I'd say the diminishing return standpoint, probably the threshold for me is going from, maybe you have more than one threshold. You could have a single boiler, you could have your heat exchanger, and then you could have your dual boiler. I'd say the difference between the first two and the dual boiler, I've been a lot happier with the dual boiler, even though I don't do many milk drinks. And the reason why I'm happier is the temperature seems to be much more rock solid.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you might be paying that extra $1,000, but for me, it's worth it. For a lot of people that are doing milk drinks, I don't know if it's necessarily worth it unless they want all that steam power. And these heat exchange machines, like, I always feel like Rocket has a really good heat exchange machine. That's just my personal opinion. There's always enough steam for me to make a couple drinks. So
yeah, I second that. With the Rocket Apartamento, I never had a problem with steaming. The heat exchange was always pretty stable in terms of what it does. And now that I've had two dual boilers, I had the Breville dual boiler, and now the Bianca V2, and not necessarily, like you said, just it's nice to have, but very powerful machines in terms of the steaming ability, and then of course the consistency at that temperature. The PIDs, amazing. Yep. And so now we enter the world because I think are we done with those espresso machines, or is there still the high end?
Well, we have the high end one that we were going to talk about, the Marzocco Micra.
Yes,
we hit the market.
We were having a discussion about this beforehand, and the Micra was one of those that I'm sure people knew it was coming, but it is an oddball machine. It really is.
Yeah, it's an interesting price standpoint, and I get why they're doing it. I mean, they're trying to compete with like your Lillet. They're trying to compete with like your Quick Mill Vetrano and your Rocket E58s and R58. I mean, it's pretty much that price point, and just the longevity of that name is kind of like the prestige behind it. I think people will buy it,
and it's an amazing machine. I would say it's I mean, obviously it's picked up a lot of steam. A lot of high profile coffee gurus out there have done quite a bit to promote it, and Mazzarco's done a great job of acquiring that assistance from them. I'm sure they believe in the machine as well, but helps to be able to have that ability to promote it heavily. One of those machines that everyone says it looks internally the same as the Mini. It's just in compact form.
Yep. I just looked up the price. This is the full MSRP. I've seen it for less than this. It's almost $4,000, so it's still really high up there. But the Mini, I mean, what are those, 6,000 or 7,000?
Yeah, it's 6,000, and if you're able to, and this has happened, and I've had the itch to do it. Which, if you go to any of these box stores online, Seattle Coffee, Whole Latte Love, whatever it is, there's a lot of open box items that you can pick up, and once in a while you can pick one up for like $5,100, $5,200.
Oh, that's not bad.
That's not bad at all for a open box item, and nothing's wrong with them, of course. Just someone that didn't want it realizes, hey, I shouldn't have spent $6,000 on a machine.
Yeah, that's happened. That's actually how I got my quick mill that I have today. A guy opened the front door. He said the box was too big. He didn't even bring it in the house. He kind of had these monetary regrets, and he returned. Well, it was technically a used item at this damn point, so I got it as a.
Couldn't get through the front door. That's how you know. My goodness, that's how you know you've gone too far, when you can't get into the front door.
It was pretty intimidating because it had a huge box with the water filtration system, water softener, and that was like as big as the machine. And then the machine itself was a huge box by the time it's double box. So it's pretty intimidating getting some of these machines.
I am impressed by how these manufacturers ship their items. And when I got the Elite, it's like the double boxed and some form of indestructible cardboard. That is just
really thick cardboard.
That gave my my trash bin some nightmares for. And still, I don't think still has gotten over that.
Yep.
But that is the world of espresso in terms of machines. I mean, are there different brands? Absolutely. You're free to look around. We'll post these links with those affiliate links that we have from Barrett. And feel free to use those. Feel free not to use those, but those are available. I would say if you're looking to support small business, if you're looking to support individuals that come out here, give her time, not paid for this, show some support and click on those links if you're interested in any of those items. And if you ever need some even advice, I'm sure you can always reach out to Barrett on at Portakeeper on Instagram, and he'll be able to kind of let you know what you think, what he thinks would be a good package for you based off your budget as well. So those are some of the options in the espresso world, and that's not even the most expensive. It can get worse than that. Now we're entering the world of grinders, and this is where I would say where everyone's been for the last year, it seems. 2022 seems to be the year of the grinder.
Yeah, the grinder market has completely exploded. It's out of control right now. Every other week, and I can't even tell you what it was called. There's a new grinder that came out just a few weeks ago. It's a budget grinder. It's conical. And just seems like every time I get on Instagram, there's something new popping up.
It is true. I follow this account, our coffee shelter, and gentleman that runs that account, he always has a brand new accessory, and I'm just like, holy crud! Like when did that grinder come out? You know, and I haven't even seen it released yet, and 5 minutes later, it's in everyone's house, which is shocking. That's where the DF64 kind of started off. It just blew up completely, and it seems like everyone ended up getting one. It was the alternative to the niche, and I'm sure it's it'll be featured on your list here. And there's plenty of choice here, and it comes down to it. And more recently, I would say is the biggest thing. And if no one's ever heard of this, and they've been under a rock for the last, gosh knows, two years, single dose grinding is the way to go nowadays. Unless you're a commercial, or unless you're just going to use the hopper, and that's fine. But SDG is the mainstay in the world of coffee nowadays. And I would say that most of these machines, and I even asked Barrett, it's like, we should probably place one of these hopper machines just in case. But where is it that we can go in terms of the value purchase, Barrett?
I'd say people that are, this is the one that I recommend a lot, and I know the guy didn't get it. He went with like an OXO for probably $50. The Baratza Encore, I know they've gone up in price, but maybe $140. You're getting a really good starter grinder. It's not made for espresso. It might work pretty good for your pressurized, like $100 Walmart espresso machines, where you're grinding a lot more coarse. But really, what it's going to give you is a really nice, just pour over. Maybe you just have just a regular coffee pot. It's going to be 10 times better than probably any grinder that you would buy out there. So really nice starter grinder. I actually had, what's it called? The Baratza Preciso. They don't sell it anymore. It was the pre-270 grinder. So it was the equivalent of the 270.
What would you pair that with, Barrett, in terms of the machines? Because we talked a little bit earlier in terms of espresso machines and how sometimes our grinder isn't capable of utilizing that strength of that machine. Where would you put that grinder in the level of comparison to what espresso machine you would put that with or combine with?
I wouldn't use the Encore with any of those machines. I mean, it's really just a drip grinder in my book. But most people that are just budding out, I mean, if they're not willing to spend $140 on a grinder, then they're probably not going to spend $1,000 or even $3, $4, $5 on a Breville. So I think it's more drip grinder. If you're going to go to the next level, I have the Turin SD40. It's a conical grinder. I think it's about $2 to $230, something like that, dollars. And I've been able to get some pretty nice espresso out of it.
Yeah, it's a machine that's been reviewed for a little bit now. It's been out for a hot minute, I think.
Yeah, almost a year. It came out earlier this year, I think.
Now, I think a lot of people have questioned it if it's powerful enough in terms of that engine, that motor that's in there. Have you had any issues?
I've not had any issues. It is a planetary gear drive, so it sounds kind of gross, I think. I mean, it's not. It
sounds like it's dying.
It's grinding. But they're using a smaller motor to get a lot of torque, and I've not ever had it jam. I've never had any issue with mine. So that's my 2 cents. I'm an early adopter. Almost all of the Turin lineup that I own, no serial number. I mean, they're very early models.
Nice. That
were out as prototypes. So I've gotten some of the later ones, and actually the later ones are nicer than the ones that I have. So,
and on a technical sheet, these grinders, I mean, you look at it. I mean, you're looking at the SD40. It kind of looks obviously almost toyish.
It does a little
bit, but on a technical standard, and you're going to be more of an expert than I am in this world. Paper wise, it shows up that it should hold up.
I'd say it should hold up.
Yeah. So it's a good investment. And plus, it's not the most expensive thing in the world, but yet it is a very capable machine. So if you're looking to pick one up, that is a good price. And I'm looking at these right now, and they're very good on that budget friendly side of it.
Or even a second grinder. It's so small.
Yeah.
When I pick it up, it feels like one of those big cans of beer that they have at the gas station. That's what it reminds me of for whatever reason. I mean, it's big, but if you compare it to other grinders, it's so small.
Your Colts.
People are using them secondary grinder, just like their drip only grinder.
Yeah.
Then they have an espresso grinder right next to it. And like, man, for $200 or a decaf, my wife only drinks decaf. They love it. It's great price point.
Absolutely true. And now we go into a little bit of a more medium price grinder.
Yeah, it's starting to get up a little bit more expensive. And really, I can't remember if I told the story last time when I was on your show. Joe at Espresso Outlet, he was talking about the DF64, and I really wasn't interested. I was like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like my thing. I didn't really care for the looks of it, and he just ended up mailing me one and didn't tell me. And I pulled it out of the box and used it, and it was a really early model. And I was like, man, I was wrong about this. I'm really impressed. I have my Super Jolly sitting here right next to it. It's so much easier to use. It's quieter. It's faster. Just go down the whole list. I like the flavor. I'm like, this is over $1,000 Super Jolly, and this is a $400 single dose grinder that's pretty much ready to go out of the box. So I would convert it very quickly to that fairly inexpensive espresso grinder. I mean, if I could have bought a DF64 when I bought that Baratza Preciso, I would have never bought the Preciso.
Yeah. And the DF64 is just exploded in popularity. It's now up to, what is it, the V4 now?
Yeah, they have the V4, and there's really not a whole lot of differences, I don't think. I think I have the V1 and the V3, but the V4, I believe it just has different bellows, maybe some slightly different clump breakers in it. But for the most part, it's the same as the others. They've just made incremental improvements.
Now, I will say, before the conversation we're having now, we talked off the podcast, I told Barrett, and a lot of people that are going to listen to this have already known and followed me on my Instagram, Javas Jaxie. They'll notice that I have a niche grinder now next to my Eureka single dose Oro. And I was telling Barrett, one of the killers for me has been mess. As much as I am a Eureka boy, and I'll admit it, I was that's all I've ever owned up to a certain point, and I was always happy. And I think their product lines with some of these grinders that they have are fantastic. I don't think there's much innovation and much in a way anymore. Recently with Eureka, I think they've just literally slapped some paint on a lot of different lines and call it something different, and they've gotten away with it. Still great items, though. I'm not going to bash that. But the one thing I was just kind of floored by is just I didn't want to join on to the niche bandwagon. I've always been a flat burst set individual, and so I was happy with the Eureka at first, and then it just became such a messy product. I mean, literally messy. It's just the workflow was killing me. And then I went with the niche. And then it's just cleaner. It works. It does what it does. It doesn't trip my breakers. And that's a powerful motor on the Oro. I'm going to tell you right now that sucker will drain some battery. Yeah, it just does it. And so I was telling that to Barrett, and Barrett's like, "Oh no, I don't think you'd like any of this just because it would be so messy." How bad is it though? Because these are some of those things that people are going to be listening to and saying to themselves, workflow is important to me. The DF64, incredibly capable machine. I mean, if you haven't seen a review, look at Barrett's, look at the 15 other thousand that exist, and everyone's happy with it. There's a few problems, and some of the things I've heard are like the declumping, and it's not the most perfect thing in the world. Some people don't like the button placement. They don't like where the new switch line is now, and so forth. No one's ever going to be happy, but it's very capable. The real question is, does it fit for your workflow? And that's the real question. I mean, for me, it doesn't. For you, it does.
I think people either need to accept having a little bit of mess or not. I mean, that's really, and if you're doing a single dose, especially with a bellow, you're going to have a mess. It doesn't matter. Pretty much anyone that I've used that has a bellow, it seems to blow out the little pieces of chaff, even if it looks like there's not much chaff, and then it wants to stick to the body of the grinder. That's really the biggest mess that I have with all the Turin lineup, is when I use the bellow, it goes into the cup. You have all those really lightweight particles of chaff that want to blow up and stick to the body of it.
Yeah.
For me, I have probably 5 of them at both of my coffee spaces. I have just paint brushes. And you can go to Home Depot and buy a $2 2-inch paintbrush with soft brush. And I just clean up my counter every few days. I have a narrow one and I have a wide one. And then I have some just barista brushes as well, just for like the crannies. So
I will say
every few days. I mean, I think it's a good trade off personally, but some people they just can't handle it.
I'm special, unfortunately. I will say about the bellows, just really funny, really quick here. There's been days where I've made a couple of espressos, and obviously I have to use the Eureka before I got the niche, and I'm still keeping the Eureka. Everyone wonders I'm keeping it. Just it's not going to be used as much unless I'm just going to make straight up juicy shots for something special that would benefit more from a burr grinder set here. But there's been days when I was bellowing. And at the end of the day, I'm washing my face, and I could smell the coffee just coming off of my face. And I'm just like, what in the world? Like, I smell coffee even washing my face. And I'm like, I've had too much. I've crossed the line. But
so that's kind of the downside to any of the bellow, in my opinion. Yeah. You're going to get a little bit of that static, and just that poof of air seems to make a mess.
It does. And it's so micro sometimes that you don't realize it's there. And like I said, washing my face, I was just like, oh my God, the water's coming out a little dingier than it normally does. You know? But yeah, that's the DF64 capable machine. Now, a little bit higher end. What would be that next step?
A little higher end. My go-to has always been the Atom 75. I mean, it's my daily driver. It's what's in my kitchen right now. It's usually the Atom 75 and whatever product I'm trying out right now. So today I actually have the DF83 with SSP burrs on the other side of it. So I've always liked the Atom 75. I use time dose. I don't do the single dose with it on most weekdays. Yeah. Going back to like what you said, you have like a really nice high-end coffee that you want to get the most out of. I mean, pretty much everything that I drink every day is going to be awesome and high end and probably better than what a lot of people would be willing to buy for their daily cup. But it's just so easy. I mean, if you can get it set up and dialed in and you're running fairly similar roast profile of beans and you throw your portafilter in and hit go, it's just awesome.
And not only that, but this machine's going to outlive you.
Yeah, it's going to last forever. It's built like a tank. Looks great. It's not my favorite styling, but I think it's grown a lot on me.
Yeah, it's very cafe.
Yeah.
If you're going into a cafe, you're likely going to see either a Mahlkonig or you're going to see an Atom nowadays, and that's what you're kind of going into when it comes down to the Atom 75. I had the Atom 75. I told this story to Barrett in the last episode we had him on. I just couldn't get in love with it. I feel that I didn't give enough of a chance though. I do.
Yeah, I felt mine immediately. I don't know why. I tried a lot of grinders. I felt like it was just that happy medium. A lot of people, they like the Giottos and stuff like that, 83 millimeter burrs. I used a compact. It was a commercial grinder. It was, I think, the F8. It's made an amazing espresso. And when I finally got around to the Atom 75, I'm like, this thing's half the size, good price, maybe as capable or more capable than like the Giotto. So it was a good point for me, at least. It's not, I know not everyone likes it, but it's what my go-to, just from a personal opinion.
And speaking of big burrs, I don't know if it's on your list, but I know you have it. I don't know if you still have it. Do you have the 83?
The DF83?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have the DF83 right now. I've been using it a ton. It's really surprised me just out of the box, just with the stock 83 millimeter Ital mill burrs. It was really fantastic. I did a couple YouTube comparisons using a crew sifter. I feel like for pour over, I was getting awesome pour over. It tasted great. I feel like the particle distribution was a little bit odd, but if it tastes good, I guess don't knock it.
Yeah. Until they get seasoned, then we'll figure it out.
Yeah. I recently did a particle distribution for espresso. It's this classic bell curve. I mean, it's spot on. The espresso that it produces I would say with the stock burrs, it's on par with the Atom 75, and it's probably half the price.
Oh yeah, if you're comparing to half the price of an Atom, which I think is now what $1,400-$1,500.
Yeah, I think base is $1,400.
And in this, even right now, as I see, and this might change, but I'm looking at the Turin DF83 via espressoutlet.net, and we'll include affiliate links again. It's selling for $699 right now at the time of the broadcast for that DF83, which is a steal. Really,
that's a steal. I mean, it's half price, and you're getting, I would say, better than the Akaya that I use, or not Akaya. I said it a minute ago. One of the big burrs. I've reviewed quite a few. I mean, it's on par with like $1,500 plus grinders.
Yeah.
Easy. I mean, it's not going to be built for a cafe. It's not made for that commercial environment. But most people buying these, I mean, they don't need that at all.
And unlike if you're into, and this is also a conversation we had before. It's like we talked about the Marzocco Mini and Micra. And, the platform usage, a lot of people get the minis for their, coffee carts, small little business things, even catering. And, a lot of people can, kind of pair them up with an Atom, because they are commercial, rated, as compared to the DF83, which I don't believe is rated for commercial, unfortunately.
It's not an SF. It's just a single dose. I mean, I wouldn't want to use it on a cart. It'd be a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it's awesome for your house. And I just did another YouTube video where I swapped out the burrs to the SSP. And I got to say, the 83 with SSP, it's ridiculous good. These aren't the multi-purpose. These are just like your traditional espresso burrs.
Gotcha.
But when I put the SSP in the 64, I wasn't that impressed with just the espresso burrs. I was really impressed with the cast. I was really impressed with the multi-purpose, but the burrs that look kind of the same, and they're just kind of espresso style burrs. I didn't get that huge of a taste difference.
Yeah.
And the 83, it's pretty big. There's a lot of clarity that it's added. It's still not over the top clarity, which I know I saw some guy saying that he was selling his because it was too much clarity, and I'm like, just wait till they come out with this multi-purpose. It's probably going to be over the top clarity.
Oh wow, yeah. I've never heard someone say it's just too much clarity in my cup. I unless you're not. Depends on how you're drinking your coffee. And it's one of the reasons I got the Nidge. When I make espresso, I'm not. Barrett is a straight up espresso drinker. He doesn't tend to go much with milk, but I go more with milk with my flat whites and stuff like that with I make espresso. And then there's those small instances where I will pull a geisha thanks to Barrett because he made that video, and I was just like I had to do it too. But there's a few other things that you just want some flat burr sets just because it does so much better for clarity, and hence the DF83, which has a massive burr set in there.
I've been really in love with it so far. It's been really great.
And what would be our lottery pick item if you hit the lottery tonight? Powerball. I don't know where it's at right now, but if you hit it, where would we be?
If I went, and we're not talking the really like specialty Weber grinders.
Yeah.
I'd probably go like E80, Mahlkonig E80. I think it's a pretty grinder. I mean, they're $4,000 some. I mean, it's built for a coffee shop. You're going to get lots of retention, but you have the 80 millimeter burrs. It's a pretty awesome machine, as well as probably I'd have to get like one of the short EKs next to
it, just because you have to. That is. And that's just scratching the surface of grinders. Just this little small conversation we've had. There is a vast amount of grinders available from big brand names like Baratza and Eureka and now Turin. there is quite a few to select from. So if there's something here that maybe didn't cross Barrett's mind, feel free to implore your knowledge of the web and try to look at some of these available. And there's plenty of websites to do so. But if you're interested in any of these, of course, again, we'll include all of these mentions on the affiliate links as well for any of these products. And a lot of great sales. So right now is the time to buy if you're in the market for one, or if you're not, and you're like me, who just is very irresponsible, and talks about, oh, you know what, $600, that sounds like a deal. If you're like me and you think that sounded like a deal, go and buy it right now.
Deal of the
right. But that's not where we end. Was that the high end of the grinders for you?
That's probably the high end. I mean, we wanted to throw some like hopper ones in there.
Yeah.
Let's have all crazy stuff like Weber Workshop and your Key and all those popular grinders that would be amazing to own. That's just kind of my list of everything that I've mentioned today. Either I want or I've used. So.
Yeah, and we'll include that hopper one on the show notes, even if we don't cover it now. We'll talk about it because, in all reality, if you're in coffee right now in the home, most people are not using hopper, and that's not to say that it doesn't exist. It exists. Yes, there are people that still use it, quite a few. However, it's not the current trend, and and in all reality, it's not where most manufacturers are going either. I did see the new Rancilio grinder that is very much hopper based. And I think Prometheus did that one.
Yeah. I think you're right.
And that shows you that, but Rancilio is also a little off. I don't know. But that's my opinion. I think they didn't hit the home run with the new model of espresso machines, and they're kind of in their own world, I think, when it comes down to coffee.
Themes. I mean, they were really popular for years, and they just haven't made the big changes that other companies have.
Yeah. And besides espresso drips, as well as grinders and machines that we've talked about, you can't go wrong with accessories when it comes down to things like this. And we're talking about knock boxes, water quality items, small things that make a big difference in the workflow and also the quality of what you're using, because these things are often put in the back burner, and yet they're the ones that end up causing the most heartache if you're using it incorrectly, hence the quarter. You'll find out later on if you're not careful. and of course, just having something nice that's gonna last you, and it's gonna look good as well, like a good knock box, because you can go cheap or you can go as expensive as you want with these designer wood knock boxes that they come up with, and they're gorgeous. But if it's not your thing, there's plenty of options available. So what are some of the good choices that you have available for just accessories in the world of coffee?
Yeah, if we're gonna talk maybe stocking stuffers or some stuff that isn't gonna really break your wallet, break the bank, I'd start with just water quality. It's not really that elegant of a topic. A lot of people use like the third wave packets. They work great. A lot of people love it. You can go buy distilled water. I know if you look on the internet, they'll give some recommendations for some of the bottled water that is recommended for espresso machines. So it's a pretty small investment that will turn into a really expensive issue in the future if you're not using it. But it's maybe not the most fun thing to go buy, like water quality packets and stuff. What I did was, I think it was only like $150. It came with my quick mill. It's a inline water softener. It's just a cartridge water softener, really small. You do have to plumb it. It was really easy for me to plumb, but I mean, that would probably be my recommendation. If you're wanting to go maybe a little bit next level, go get you a fairly inexpensive water softener.
Yeah, especially if you live in areas that are notorious for a lot of scale. I live in El Paso, Texas. Southwest desert. And so you can imagine there's a lot of salt.
A lot of.
So these things are going to destroy your investment of a nice machine. And if you value that, then that's a good, cheap investment. And they're not, third weight water. There's other brands as well, but, they're not the cheapest things in the world, but they're also a good insurance and investment in terms of not only making your coffee taste better, but also, long-term use of the machine. It just keeps it safe. And I want to protect something that I paid so much for. And I would hope anyone else does as well, unless you really don't care, which is fine.
Yeah.
What else?
Figure out what else to buy because it's going to be ruined.
Yeah.
All the scale. I'd say if you're looking for some cool stocking stuffers, the Normcore stuff, they make a lot of WDT tools. Something that I'm wanting right now is they have a magnetic dosing funnel. I don't even think they're that much, maybe $30.
I have that magnetic funnel. It is nice. It is nice.
So that would probably, if you're looking for like really cheap, just adding to a family member's stocking, I'd say that they have a lot of really cool stuff. They just came out with like their new bean vault. I think it's not real cheap, but it's probably cheaper than many of them out there. And it looks really nice. So I have a lot of friends using Normcore. It seems to be really popular. I don't really have much of their stuff, but really everything that they offer, I've already had in some form, so I've just not replaced it.
They have a really good tamper, the pressure tamper that they have. I have the 58.5 millimeter tamper for it, and great quality. I mean, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. You can go as high as you want, and some of these tampers that they have the force adjustment on them already. So this way you're not going to, put in 100 pounds of pressure on it. They're good quality, good items, but they can go for some $200. So one specifically that I won't mention here goes for $199. And for me, I'm just like, yeah, but for the same thing, the same job, I can get Normcore for, half the price, even less than that, 1/3 of the price. Yeah.
Yeah. They're getting to the point where, you do have your really high-end tampers. I've always been a Reg Barber fan. Most of his, probably about $100. I have, I think, 4. I've been really lucky on some of mine.
But there's reasons for those, though. They're customized.
Yeah, they're customized. One in particular, I think he made some years ago. It's a green tamper base, and he didn't even make those anymore. So, they're really cool to have, and I've really enjoyed them.
Yeah.
But I reached out to some manufacturers, and even Portakeeper. We're selling 4 different tampers now, just budget tampers. And I tried them all before I ordered crates of them because I wanted to make sure that it's going to perform well. And we sell all ours for $30 or $29.99, something like that. And everyone that buys them, they're just like, for $30, this thing is solid. It really performs or outperforms some of these $100 plus tampers. You're not maybe getting some of the fancy wood.
Yeah.
2 of mine have really, really beautiful sandalwood on them. One of them has walnut, and then the last one's just all black. So they're not boring.
Yeah.
But for $30, you can get a really great tamper nowadays.
And it's also a product that is either going to be sitting out there and you're worried about the aesthetic, or you only care about the 3 seconds you're going to use it for, and that's it.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, you can go with one of the budget items that Barrett sells on his own Portakeeper site. And that's the good way to go. And of course, like you said, you can get these specialized custom wood grips, and they're absolutely gorgeous. These things are just little conversation starters on their own. If you have people over, they're going to want to look at that, and they are lovely. Having something nice for yourself is worth it sometimes. And so if you have the money to splurge, do it. If you don't, there's options.
Oh yeah, there's amazing options nowadays.
And mind you, Barrett tests every single filter, or at least every single tamper before he sends it out, right, Barrett? No?
Yeah, I open them up. scratched, and I want to make sure that they look good. There's a little of kind of like the blemish, and
and if there's still some coffee residue left on yours, it's
ignore that.
Yeah, just ignore that. It's just extra flavoring for you. But these are some of the accessories that are available on his site, and I know he's not going to do it himself, so I want to also do this, Barrett. It's stocking stuffers is with the Portakeeper line also. So let's talk a little bit about the Portakeeper, because I possess the one and only Portakeeper item that has a Barrett Ellis signature, and one of these days I will auction that off on eBay for whopping money, amounts that I can get on there. So
tens of dollars.
All tens of dollars. No, the more popular you get, this is where we get the investment in. Okay, we're working on to get the your face recognizable to the point where you're just going to be a name brand.
Yeah, I'd love that. And that's really been the goal as I grow this business. I mentioned earlier, and it might not make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but to date, we've been using 3D printers to make all of the Portakeeper products, and to just increase throughput and the demand that's out there, we're using injection molding machines. So it's a machine that pushes plastic into a cavity that's the inverse shape of the product, and then it spits out the part and makes another one, and it makes them repetitively really quickly. And we've invested a lot of time and a lot of money into getting that off the ground, and we're really proud of that. And really the route that I'm wanting to go is just people that want to white label products. I'm hoping that companies, they want their logos on it, and we'll be able to either hot stamp or laser engrave or whatever they want their logo into it. Just do really cool, fun stuff, because when you're walking up to your coffee bar in the morning and you see your awesome espresso machine and your awesome grinder next to it, we want you to see your awesome portafilter hanging on the wall. It just really pulls everything together. It looks great. We talked about these beautiful tampers, almost like a conversation starter piece. I always have two really nice tampers out. I mean, in my eyes, they're on display.
Yeah.
Other people, they'll come in and it's not just hidden in a corner or in a drawer. I mean, they're front and center. They're accessible so you can grab them. It's actually utilitarian, but also it just really showcases all the cool stuff that you've invested in.
Absolutely.
In my eye.
What would be a good package from Portakeeper as their last accessory line for your stocking stuff? Or what would be a nice little package that you would create that would fit very, very nicely in a stocking?
I would say if I was going to buy from my website, really popular, I mean, just from what I see people buy is 2 Portakeepers and 1 TamperKeeper. I mean, that's kind of just the basics. So the 2 Portakeepers, I usually keep a blind filter in one, and then I keep my bottomless in the other. And if you have a third, sometimes people leave one in the machine still. You can have a spouted portafilter as well. Maybe some different baskets if you like VST in one and IMS in another. I know some people that do that. So I would say 2 Portakeepers and a TamperKeeper are what I see most people buying. And I've noticed just as things have picked up through the holidays, people are picking up like a WDT tool. It hangs on the wall. It's really improved my shots with like the DF83 single dose, fluffs everything up. Or I've seen people add a tamper, and it's another $30, but it's pretty cheap investment. And I've had like a gal the other day, she messaged me and she was all confused about her order. And I was like trying to figure out what was going on. And she goes, well, it's for my husband for Christmas. And I don't know. This isn't my thing. And so, yeah, you can always reach out if you have questions about like which machine you need. But that's really what I've seen people buying for the holidays for their spouse or family member.
Well, gosh, Barrett, I had fun doing this because you're so in tuned with the world of coffee, espresso machines, always constantly doing some reviews. So if you haven't, go check out Barrett online at Portakeeper.com, also on Instagram at Portakeeper, and also your YouTube channel by the same name, Barrett?
Yes, it's under at Portakeeper on YouTube.
Nice. And he does post videos quite a bit in terms of what he's reviewing, his product line, and you redid your kind of your studio area, which looks fantastic.
I recently got a studio. It's outside of my house, so we moved all the 3D printers, all of the inventory and packaging, and just everything that goes with a business out of our basement, which was just kind of weighing on our house. And we're now it's a really cool space downtown, and it's industrial, but it's very utilitarian for my needs. So we're really excited to be down there. It's helped things just tremendously, get stuff out the door.
Well, I am happy that you're moving up and doing so much in your business. I turn around every 5 minutes and there it is, something new. I'm just floored by what you do and are capable of. Barrett, where can people find you? Although they've already just heard it from me, where can people find you?
Yeah, best place for me is usually Instagram at Portakeeper. We're growing that pretty well. YouTube at Portakeeper as well, or at www.portakeeper.com. You will see my products on Etsy. There are some that look similar that aren't mine, so just make sure if you're on Etsy to look for the Portakeeper shop name.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Barrett. I've always have so much fun talking with you, and it's always a pleasure. And we'll do this all over again next year. So we'll have a long list. I'm sure Barrett will have something to go.
Old by then, they'll have 20 new grinders and 10 new.
and we would have tested each one, and I would have gone through at least 5 or 6 new purchases. But thank you so much, Barrett.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Of course. And don't forget to subscribe to Everything Coffee on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts, and follow us on Instagram at everything.coffee.podcast, and check out our website at everythingcoffee.podbean.com. And thank you for listening and doing your part in supporting local businesses in your city and around the world.